infinity and beyond.
So enjoy these beautiful creatures as they soar into your hearts on their flights of wonder.
We're incredibly proud of the fantasy, which builds on the creativity, innovation, and artistry, which are the hallmarks of not only the Walt Disney Cruise Line, but of the Walt Disney Company.
To hear how the story goes, go ahead and push my nose.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 615. And I'm here once again not only to help you have the best Disney vacation experience when you go to the parks, but I also want to bring you some of the Disney magic wherever you are with the podcast, live video broadcasts on Facebook every Wednesday night, videos, blog, books, audio tours, and more. Whether it's your first time visiting or you've been hundreds of times, if you're planning a vacation or love the history, details, secrets, and stories, there's something in the show for you, because each week I'm going to take you from the parks to the screens and everything in between. And if you're a new listener, thank you, welcome. Please go back and check out some or all the past episodes for interviews, top 10s, reviews, and more. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and find everything else at WDWRadio.com. So I'm going to continue my conversation with Joe Lanzisiero, former Senior Vice President of Creative at Walt Disney Imagineering, as we journey to Tokyo Disney Sea, discuss the S.E.A. and the unique take there on the Tower of Terror. We'll also discuss what almost became of the Muppets in the Disney parks, Howard Stark and Walt Disney, Marvel, technology, his work on designing and reimagining the ships of Disney Cruise Line, and more. I'll then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, and I'll pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Then stay tuned to the end of the show for information, updates, your voicemails, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. So I'm excited to continue our conversation with Joe Lanzisiero, former Senior Vice President of Creative at Walt Disney Imagineering. Joe, I want to first thank you and welcome you back to the show.
Wow, it's great to be back, and thank you for welcoming me back a second time.
Well, we had so much that we wanted to cover, and really we left off, I think, sort of just scratching the surface of Mystic Manor. When I said that we could talk for hours, we probably could, but also the underlying S.E.A. Society of Explorers and Adventure storyline. And I want to revisit that briefly and go back really to sort of where it all began, which also happens to be my favorite park. And a culturally, again, we talked a lot about culture and the cultural differences and the culturally different take that you and Imagineering had to take on one of the new classics, as it were, of attractions created by Imagineering for the Disney parks, the Tower of Terror. Again, a different way, like Mystic Manor, a different way of telling sort of a Haunted Mansion story. Here you had a different way of having to tell a Tower of Terror story, because the Twilight Zone TV show itself was not something that played or was popular or really was well known in Japan at all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there were two reasons for revisiting the backstory. One, as you just mentioned, was the fact that the Japanese did not grow up in the 1950s and 60s watching Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone. So that immediately meant there was no affinity or understanding of that. So that quickly was taken off the table. But second was the location of the attraction in the park, and being true to the location, the bigger storytelling of the park, and of course the parcel of land that we were given to build this on was in American waterfront. In fact, they had looked at in doing a couple of different attractions on the site where we ultimately built Tower of Terror. Back when the Muppets were being looked at early on, before Disney bought the Muppets. And in fact, I could talk a little bit at some point about some of the work I did with the Henson Group. This was back in the very early 90s when Jim was still alive, and Disney was Michael Eisner was looking to create some kind of partnership or even buy the Muppets. And that's when the original Muppet 3D was done at Walt Disney World, and they created that whole little Muppet area. And I actually worked with a team on developing some attractions, some ideas for there. But like I said, that's another story for later, because I don't want to deviate from the Tower of Terror. But on that site, one of the ideas was to do a Muppet attractions about a New York. The Muppets were great because they could adapt to any kind of story. So they had done this thing for the Muppets on a kind of a crazy gangster kind of chase thing, and it was really fun. But again, the Muppets didn't have the deep affinity with the Japanese. And they wanted one of the filters we always used when designing attractions for TDS was to try to differentiate the kind of the tone and the feeling from TDL, which was a Magic Kingdom park, more family, more fantasy. And from the very start, they always thought of TDS as the more adult park. It was designed with the thought that it was going to be a little edgier, a little more adult. So with that in mind, we always thought about, okay, then how does that affect the tone and the storytelling of what we're going to be doing? So they really wanted Tower of Terror. The Japanese, they didn't like to take risks, and I'm actually going to contradict myself. They did take a lot of risks and try some really new things, but they were also quick to go with the tried and true, especially with technology. And so Tower of Terror was just re-engineered for Disney's California Adventure at the time. Unfortunately, and I was a little disappointed, my favorite Tower of Terror, hands down, is the Florida version, because it has that incredible moment when you leave the quote shaft and you go into the fifth dimension and it moves across, and then you do the drop. And I just think that's mind blowing. And I actually pushed to do that in Tokyo. But often the management at the time, for political reasons and other reasons, were listening to others in the company who convinced them that they had to go with the tried and true new technology that was being used in California. But that said, you make the best of what you've got. And I think we had a lot of fun developing the storyline and coming up with the story that was, as you said, an extension of the S.E.A. story that was established in the fortress at TDS. And that was the brainchild of the Kirks, Steve and Tim Kirk, two incredibly talented guys, super smart. And it was Steve that was charged with the overall initial development and design of TDS. I later took over for him and watched over the resort for another 10 years, just building on all the great work that he and his original team did. And and as you know, I was on that original team way back when they first started designing TDS. I was working with Steve and the team and did the initial design for Mermaid Lagoon, did the initial design for Arabian Coast, and worked a lot of brought both of those lands to a pretty good level of development. Pretty much the DNA and the bones of what I did made its way to the final opening day. So I felt pretty good about that. So I long had an association and affinity with that park. But getting back to Tower of Terror, so we had to come up with a new storyline, and we love the story of the S.E.A., the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which was indirectly connected to the Adventurers Club at Walt Disney World, but it didn't start there. I think it was influenced by that. And so there was this base mythology about this group of adventurers who had a society, and that the Magellans was the home base for them, where they would all meet, come in from the various parts of the world and, converse and have their great meal and drink and talk about their adventures around the world. So that base story was there. So like every organization and every good story, there's good guys and there's bad guys. And we wanted to create a character that had a lot of interesting backstory about him. And honestly, you know what? Villains are always a little more interesting than the good guy. In fact, I remember back at Feature Animation, the animators that worked close with Walt, the 9 old men, in particular, a couple of them, Frank Thomas and Eric Larson, who was our mentor, told us they always preferred to get the villain assignment because the villains were a lot more interesting, a lot more complex. They had a kind of a deeper psyche you could go into and gave you more to play with when you were developing the character. So we liked that idea of creating a character that wasn't, at least maybe the public face was scrupulous, but underneath he was not a very honest man, and that was Harrison Hightower.
And was it Chuck Ballou who helped sort of craft this very elaborate backstory and even sort of drafted a comic book that you used as sort of the foundation for a lot of the choices that were made, not just in story, but in design?
Chuck Ballou is another one of those unsung heroes. You probably don't hear his name very much, but Chuck actually started working with me back on Mickey's Toontown in the late 80s, early 90s. Just at that point, he was just a show set designer, and he came from theater. And I like Imagineers that came from theater because they already were thinking theatrically about how they were approaching the presentation of the visual aspects of what we did. And Chuck was not only a very skilled draftsman, but just had a brilliant mind too. And he went on to work with me on a number of attractions for TDR. He worked on the original, when we did the first redo of Buzz Lightyear, but Chuck had also worked on the original Buzz Lightyear as well at Walt Disney World. Anyway, so yes, as you said, and Chuck was one of those designers that before he would put pen to paper, he had to go deep into the understanding of the story and the characters. So as you said, he actually created this whole, we had brainstorms where we had kind of worked out the basic mythology and the basic story arc, that there was this world traveler. He collected these artifacts. He often did them in a very unscrupulous way. He stole them, and he found this one that was cursed and took its revenge on him, and that's what caused his ultimate demise on New Year's Eve in this elevator that was haunted, or the spirit of this artifact came and took it over. So that was kind of the basic storyline, but then Chuck went like really deep into, who Harrison Hightower was, what other, questionable acts that he had involved himself in, where he had traveled. He gave him a kind of a Man Friday, kind of a butler that traveled with him. So, and then even, went as far as to, name the tribes where he got the Shriki and Tundu. That's the little, the haunted statue that creates all the trouble for him. So Chuck created this great mythology, great backstory, and then even went as far as you said to make comic books to visualize it as well. So that was great. I mean, we often talk on, I think I mentioned this last time about, the ways you apply story to an attraction. You can either use a known IP, and in that regard, I say, well, its story is narrative, because you have an established narrative that you're using that's going to guide all your design choices. But then you can create a subtext story, one that the guests may not necessarily follow as they would an IP where it's established, the characters and such. And we kind of did the same for Mystic Point with Lord Henry Mystic and Albert the Monkey and all those characters and that story. But with what Chuck had done, we had this great subtext that every design choice then could go through this filter, and we could say, okay, well, Harrison Hightower, his hotel would look like the way it looked because he had the gigantic ego. He had stolen all these artifacts that, of course, he wanted to bring back and put on display. We also made a little nod to Hearst, and I can't remember what's his name, the famous publisher who has this crazy mansion here in California, Hearst Castle, which I don't think he went and stole the artifacts, but it's just a very interesting, eclectic mix of antiquities from all over the world that kind of influenced the look of that. So, in fact, I remember we took the whole design team on a little road trip and we went up to Hearst Castle and spent a couple days up there photographing. And then they have 3 or 4 different tours you can taking the tours. And that really gave us a sense, of also how someone's personality can come out through the way their surroundings, of course, are an expression of them. And that was, and that gave us a lot of great ideas to work off of. So, tip of the hat to Chuck Ballou.
Well, and it's interesting the way that you frame that, because like Lord Henry Mystic, you use antiques and artifacts to support the story of this world traveler, where Lord Henry Mystic is much more whimsical, where you have somebody and a place that's much more foreboding and dangerous with Harrison Hightower. Quick tangent, because that seems to be the way our conversations go anyway. As you were talking about it and sort of storylines that come to be, I know that in Walt Disney World, and I don't know if you worked on the Walt Disney World version of Tower of Terror, but I know at one point there was actually consideration, and I bring this up because I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan, there was a consideration to use Mel Brooks and Young Frankenstein as a walkthrough concept for the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror in Walt Disney World. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, in fact, when I continue to work with Tim Kirk. He works with me on some of my consulting projects and some of the work I'm doing currently. Still as sharp and brilliant and creative as ever, and just very interesting. He's another very interesting character. That's been one of the joys of my career, is to work with all these incredibly interesting and eccentric and unusual, artistic people. Boy, and you learn so much being around them, and we all kind of like pushed each other. But Tim was working on the Tower of Terror for Walt Disney World, and he was the one who was telling me that they were actually looking at a number of different stories early on, and one of them was going to be, a young Frankenstein walk. Initially, there was going to be a real hotel, and they were going to, where you could go and you'd be immersed in the story and stay in the hotel. But I guess for I don't know if it was for operational reasons or for whatever reason, they abandoned the real hotel idea. But then that grew into an attraction. Initially, it was going to be a walkthrough, and then they had been developing this drop tower kind of ride system independently of the Tower of Terror, and then they married the two together. And of course, then as we talked earlier, it ended up going with the Rod Sterling Twilight Zone story.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk to both Steve and Tim, like way back when I think it was like show 30 and show 54. I mean, he was sort of in the very early days talking a lot about Tokyo, and to the point about these incredibly immersive and, more importantly, connected backstories. Let's sort of fast forward a little bit to Iron Man and the Iron Man experience in Tokyo, and this woven backstory that's not just present in that attraction, but you collectively craft this story about how Howard Stark actually knew Walt Disney and how the Stark Expo comes into play the same way that Walt in 55 creates Tomorrowland. Talk about the genesis of that story, and then tying it in to those locations like Hong Kong and Paris and DCA.
Yeah. Well, the challenge was how to put, and by the way, Hong Kong was the first park to have a Marvel attraction. So we were the first that kind of had to grapple with how to introduce that IP into a Disney park. More importantly, how to introduce that IP into a Magic Kingdom park. I think DCA, with its bigger theme being kind of more generic in terms of things, or even Epcot, which kind of has this future spin on it. But Magic Kingdom parks, are about fantasy. Although going back to the original Disneyland in 1955, when Walt opened the Anaheim park, Tomorrowland was really a World's Fair. It took its cue from a World's Fair. In fact, they had pavilions there, like you would find a World's Fair. I think it was Alcoa Aluminum had their had a pavilion there, and and all through the early years of Tomorrowland, people like Monsanto, the Adventure Through Inner Space was sponsored by them, but they always had a post-show or a pre-show, that talked about their technologies and who they were. So it very much had that kind of expo feeling to it. So with that understanding, we said, well, in the Iron Man mythology, Iron Man's father had done this big expo, and when you look at the time period, it was within the realm of logic that Walt would have known him in much the way we know historically Walt had a lot of interest in World's Fairs, and the famous story of him going to the Railroad World's Fair convention in Chicago, and his travels to Europe and such. So it was well within the realm of possibility that Howard Stark and Walt Disney met. And because of that, we fast forward now to his son and Iron Man, and he's bringing his expo now to Disneyland, and it makes sense that it would be in Tomorrowland, much the way the early Tomorrowland at Disneyland had these pavilions. So it was pretty much this, us taking that core story and just kind of building on it. And I think it works. I think the logic of it didn't feel out of place, because we're not saying that you're going to, and that's the other thing. Marvel is not a place. It's not like you can go to, like Star Wars, there are planets where you go to. Marvel is a real world. Those superheroes live in New York, and Stark lives in Malibu. I mean, they're earthbound people. They live on this planet Earth. So you have to have a real world place for them. So the whole expo thing kind of made sense, and I think it kind of built a foundation then for the designers that then went to put attractions like at DCA. It's the I think it's the Avengers Academy. So again, it's a real world place that just happens to be in a Disney park. And I think it's there's that whole suspension of disbelief that people have to have when you go into a Disney park, where you're not really in the jungles when you're in the Jungle Cruise, but it's so convincingly done that you dispense with disbelief and you just buy into it. And I think that works well too with these real world attractions, when there's some context that gives them logic for being in the real world, and people go in there and then you don't think twice about it. It doesn't feel odd or out of place.
Well, I think Tokyo Disney Sea, which I believe is the best of the best of the best of what Imagineering has ever done. I always say Disney Sea is what happens when you give WDI money and say, go do what you do best. But there is, to your point, there is a lot of that reality and fantasy coexisting. And as you said that, I thought of places like Arabian Coast, where there is this real world believable place, as opposed to someplace like Mermaid Lagoon, which has this very unique whimsical architecture. And even before thinking about the attractions themselves, one of the things that I noticed in Tokyo Disney Sea, which was something very different as opposed to their Magic Kingdom or our Magic Kingdom, are the changing elevations and how incredibly well designed and well utilized they were. I will admit, I almost didn't even know Mermaid Lagoon was there because so much of it was wonderfully hidden below ground.
Yeah. I got, again, tip of the hat to the Kirks and that original design team. And like I said, I feel proud that I was a part of that original design team and had a little bit to do with it. But they had some really great architects, and I can't remember his name, one of the architects that worked on it, but please forgive me. I'll try to remember his name. But they were really pushing for, because actually Tokyo Disneyland was probably the most uninteresting in terms of its kind of geographical, topographic design. It was designed, and the story is it was designed more by the architects than the show designers. And mostly because Oriental Land Company kind of went shopping. They went to Disneyland, they went to Walt Disney World, and they said, oh, we like that attraction, we like that attraction. And and they were put together, and they without a strong regard for the transition points. I always thought it was odd that you could be standing in Frontierland and I could look over and see the Snow White Grotto right across the way. And it was explained to me later that was, well, there were separate teams working on that park that, sometimes didn't talk to each other. So they didn't know what the other team, like the Frontierland team, didn't know what the Fantasyland team was doing. But with Tokyo Disney Sea, they had a strong vision, an incredible vision. And it was also a very cohesive team where everybody was talking and there was a grand vision. So, like I said, the Kirks and the architectural team really worked to take advantage of and really create something that mostly for cinematic effect. Most of those lands you enter in at a higher elevation. So you kind of get this overview of the land, or at least a portion of the land, which kind of beckons you in. It's a little bit like not directly analogous to like walking down Main Street, but kind of that same effect. You walk down Main Street and there's the castle at the end, or you get to the hub and then you see the castle, or you look to the right and you see the rocket jets in Tomorrowland. You look to the left and you see the steamboat off in the distance and the rivers of America, and it kind of draws you in, and then you make choices about how you want to navigate the land, which was the brilliance of the original design of Disneyland. Of course, they deviated from that hub and spoke design, but what they did do was, create. There was always kind of a logic to navigating yourself through the park, and it was because they created, as you said, these changes in elevation where you could get a great overview of the land, kind of get your lay of the land from a higher elevation, and then it kind of beckoned you in, and then as you moved through it, things were revealed, and it had kind of this wonderful flow because the park was about exploration. That was the other thing, one of the high level principles that they were going. They wanted a park that was about this world travel, and part of world travel, as anyone knows, if you travel the world, part of it is exploring and the fun of making. Sometimes you make that wrong left turn, the universe surprises you, and something's there that you didn't expect, and so they kind of took that approach to it. But I would say in that regard, Lou, as you said, the elevation changes certainly makes it one of the more interesting parks to navigate your way through.
Well, and talking about things like concepts changing and morphing a little bit, I think one of the more remarkable attractions and instant classic attractions is the Voyage of Sinbad, where, again, the original concept changed. It was a lot of it was based on the stories, the 7 Voyages of Sinbad that we knew, but then it sort of morphed about being more like Small World in terms of tone and size, and a little bit more, Japanese kawaii type cute. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the genesis of the story and how Sinbad and the immediately lovable Chandu came to be.
Yeah. First off, I never criticize the work of any of my peers because, first off, I think everybody sets out to do the best job they can. I think especially Imagineers, there's no more passionate, devoted group of designers in the world, and that you always set out to try to create something great. But what what we do in the theme parks for the most part is prototypical, hasn't been done before. Maybe sometimes it's a variation of something that's been done before, but for most cases, and especially in the case of TDS, where they were trying to create a whole new kind of park, a whole new kind of park experience. So they were trying, and I give them a lot of credit, then they took some risks and tried some new things in that park. And they wanted to create something that was going to have kind of the scale and the visual whimsy of It's a Small World, but with kind of the bit of the epic grandeur of Pirates of the Caribbean. And I thought that's a bold concept, but it's hard to pull off. And in the end, it just didn't resonate with the guests because they didn't quite know, is this a cute little thing for kids, or it was a little scary? So it kind of found itself in kind of this netherworld, kind of in this gray area. And the guests, they came off and they liked it, but I mean, and OLC was great. Oregon Land Company owned the park. They were great about, monitoring, the popularity of rides and doing lots of, surveys and such. And it always rated very low. And it was a very expensive attraction to do. It's a huge show building with, hundreds of animatronic figures and sets and special effects. So the management knew that there was some core. There was something there that we could work with. They didn't necessarily want to, tear it down and start over again. And the Sinbad stories are interesting, but what it lacked was that human connection. I think the little puppets and the way that the animatronic figures and the way they did it, it didn't have that connection to the guests. So they asked us to go in and see if we could figure out how to make it a little more guest friendly. And so if you look at things like, if we said, okay, now we have a choice to make. Either do we try to make it more scary and more like Pirates? We said, yeah, but visually it looks more like Small World. So what is it that makes Small World great? And the first thing we came up with was a song. The Sherman Brothers song is probably the stickiest song ever done. Just mentioning it, if you hear like the first two lines, it's going to be in your head for the rest of the day. But that's the genius of it. And it creates a tone and a feeling for that attraction. So first was come up with a song, and I'll talk a little bit more about the development of the music in a moment. But we also wanted a device to connect the audience more with the story and also give Sinbad's character a little more depth. And so we came up with the sidekick. In every Disney film, like in Aladdin, he's got Abu. They've got many of them. It gives a sidekick because it builds that relationship. You see how their friendship works and and it's just something that people know. They get it. It's like most people have a pet, a dog, a cat, a hamster, and that connection that you have with that pet. So that immediately creates empathy for the character too. And so you feel for the character. And so we created this little Shandu, this little tiger. Plus OLC liked it because it's not a known IP, right? But the Japanese love everything cute, as you said earlier, the kawaii. If it's cute. I mean, think about Hello Kitty is this whole giant mega franchise IP based on just a cute little cat's face. There were no movies, there was no backstory, no books. It was just a cute little cat, Hello Kitty. So they love their mascot. In fact, in Japan, even the police department has a cute mascot. So everywhere, so it was a natural there. We knew, let's create this cute little Shandu character, and I'm sure they've sold $1 million worth of little Shandu plush at this point. And then now let's get back to the song. So we wanted to create a song, something that had some stickiness to it, and we were fortunate because Alan Menken, who wrote the music for Little Mermaid and wrote the music for Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, had a very, very close relationship with the company. And so we were able to get Alan Menken interested in doing the music. Of course, his partner, Howard Ashman, the brilliant Howard Ashman, who had worked with him on Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, unfortunately had passed on. But he had a young lyricist, this guy Glenn Slater, who kind of was working with him at that time. And I thought he was a super creative guy. And he came up with this idea of, follow the compass of your heart, and they came up with a little song that goes with it. And I guess and then they had to work very closely with the Japanese interpreters to make the flow of the words work right with the cadence of the music. I remember there was a lot of thought and work done. So because we knew our audience, it would have more resonance if it worked in their language. But it was actually the Japanese. But most of the songs in the park still have some English lyric in them. We never translated 100%. So it's part English and part Japanese, but definitely worked in a way that worked with the music and with the language. So it had a nice flow to it.
And you're right, as somebody who does not speak Japanese and who loved the attraction, came off, bought his shandu, and was trying to sing the song. It's one of those things that gets, it is very Small World-like in its effect on you.
Thank you.
I want to look, again, I could spend forever in Tokyo, but I want to move over to the Disney Cruise Line a little bit, because you were also tasked with helping to reimagine the original ship, the Disney Magic. Again, it's like going into Disney. It's like being asked to reimagine Disneyland, take this original and authentic. What was the task you were given, and how did you approach it? Like, how do you make what was really at the time the best of the best, I believe, in the cruise industry? How do you make that even better while retaining those important elements and really the essence of what the magic was?
Well, you just nailed it. That was understanding what the essence of what made the essence of the Disney Cruise Line. What were those things that made it work? And I was actually fortunate enough to work on the original Magic and Wonder back in the middle 90s. At the time, the design was actually being led by there was a group called Disney Development Company, who was more of the real estate arm of the Walt Disney Company. They would develop real estate projects and and were doing most of the hotels and resorts. And they thought that the cruise lines fell more under was more like a resort. In the end, what they discovered, it really had to have the Disney theme park storytelling as part of its DNA. And they were pretty well into the design process when they brought WDI in, and I was part of the team. I wasn't leading the team at the time. I was just one of the designers, and it was actually Eric Jacobson at WDI. Another tip of the hat to a guy who I so enjoyed working with. Eric was such a great leader and always had fun. He made his teams always enjoyable to be on. But so we were kind of tasked with looking at the ship and bringing some of the Disney IP, some of the Disney DNA into the ship. In the defense of Disney Development Company, their task, that from a business standpoint, at that point in the cruise industry, there was no family cruise line. There was one, I think it was called the Big Red Boat, and they had actually licensed Disney characters. And actually it was kind of pathetic. In fact, early on in my assignment for working on the Disney Magic, they gave me the assignment to be in charge of designing the kids areas. So they sent me and my family, my wife at the time, and my daughter, I think she was probably only 7 or 8, on the Big Red Boat to And we were, in fact, my daughter, she joked, she goes, "Dad, we're going to be spies, right?" And so I brought home those Groucho glasses with the nose and the thing. I go, "Yeah, we have to wear these the entire time we're on the ship because we're going to be spies." But it was pretty pathetic. They had taken what was the corner of one of the casinos and turned it into the kids area by putting some Little Tikes play equipment in there and slapping some characters on the wall. But and so I'm losing my train of thought. So we knew we had to do we didn't have to work hard to do better, but we wanted to do way better. So the WDI team came on, and we were looking throughout the whole ship at where we could infuse it with some more Disney stuff. Because, as I said, the development team, they were concerned because there were no family cruises at the time. The primary audiences for cruise were either young adults or very old people. And they were afraid of alienating that audience. They knew from a business standpoint, they had to create something, put something out into the marketplace that was kind of guaranteed to address the current cruising market. But they also knew they had to break ground and develop something that was going to be more family oriented, because when people see the name Disney, it's synonymous with family entertainment. And I remember one of the early designs that that they had done for the kids area were devoid of any Disney IP. And I remember sitting, and they brought me into an early review with Michael Eisner, and they were presenting what was done for the kids areas. And it was Michael Eisner who was the CEO at the time. And Michael Eisner says, he goes, "Where's the Disney?" He said, "This is a Disney cruise." He goes, especially in the kids areas. So it was at that point then that that just gave me the big green light to move forward with, and especially at that time, I think Toy Story had just come out. So we did like a little Buzz Lightyear moment. The Honey, I Shrunk the Kids films had just come out. So we wanted to do kind of this little science area. So we themed it after Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and of course, Mickey and Minnie. So those original kids areas were kind of a melting pot of a variety of Disney IP with no one central theme that tied them all together. Excuse me. So then when it came time, I was actually given the assignment. I took over the work that was started by Wing Chow on the Disney Dream and Fantasy. And on the Dream, a lot of work had already been done in terms of the design, using a lot of great designers that had worked on the original ships. And as you said a moment ago, I mean, they knew that there was an expectation, that guests had already come to love the Disney Cruise Line, but then how can we take these new ships and kind of bring them to the next level? And I think we did two things. Was one, taking things, and I'll use the example of Animator's Palette, which was probably one of the most Disney experiences on the magic and the wonder, and they were wonder, and those were also the product of Walt Disney Imagineering on those ships. We came up with those concepts, not me personally, but the team did, and it was a magical experience. You got in, you got to have your meal, and you were surrounded. It was a completely black and white, cartoon world that you were in, and then through the course of the dinner, the walls change color. It comes to life. The color comes to life. The static black and white pictures turn into color animation on the walls. And even I thought the touch of brilliance was the waiters' vests and their outfits that were black and white become color at the end too. I thought that was a great one. So it's like, so how do you top that? And I remember they were this idea of creating, an animation studio, but taking it one step further, and you could be an animator. And they came up with this great technology, as you know, that allows the guests to draw on a placemat, and that drawing, no matter how crude or how developed, actually gets to become a piece of animation that you see up on the screens, and not only does it come to life and move and dance, it comes to life and moves and dance with Disney characters. What could be better than that? So I think that's a great example of taking something that was very Disney, something great, but then what was that next level of technology? What was that next level of guest engagement that just took it, over the top?
Well, and that's definitely something that I would love to chat with you more about. I've come to realize, Joe, that we cannot cover everything that we need to in just 2 seconds. I think you just need to be a recurring guest and come on every few weeks, because I want to talk to you about, technology and immersion and interactive elements. And we're going to tease maybe coming back and talking more about the Muppets in the park, as somebody who grew up loving the Muppets.
That was like another dream come true for me, because I never got to meet Walt Disney. I was fortunate enough to work with and be taught by the gentleman that worked directly with Walt. But I would say my second childhood hero, second to Walt, was Jim Henson, and because of Disney, I got to meet Jim Henson, and I got to work with Jim Henson, and have that moment. Unfortunately, he passed away not long after we started our work with him. But boy, that was another, not only childhood dream, lifetime dream come true.
Yeah. Again, in terms of masterful storytellers who understood and really created this incredible legacy of wholesome family entertainment that, again, can be enjoyed by everyone. So you know what, Joe, I will wrap up not with what's the one thing you brought up Walt Disney, but I'm not going to ask you what's the one thing you would ask Walt. I would instead say, if you had the opportunity to show Walt something, right? There's so much that I think you probably personally are proud of that you have helped touch and create, as well as the company as a whole. If you had an opportunity to show Walt or take him somewhere in one of the parks, what would you show him and why?
I think that's a pretty easy one. I would definitely take him to Anaheim, and I would show him Mickey's Toontown, because talk about an incredible honor, not only to be able to design or be in charge of the design of a whole new land for Disneyland, but it's the land where Mickey Mouse lives. The character that Walt created on that train traveling to LA, and the character that's probably the most known and beloved character in the world. And I got to tell you, the gravity of that, that was a huge, I think we talked a little bit about this last time, we were a bunch of naive kids working on that project, but every so often I would lay in bed and go, oh my God, we're designing Mickey's house. We're designing the world where Mickey lives. So, and I think we were trying to be so true and honest to those characters and their personalities. And because I was able to use the training from Walt's, his 9 old men and the artists that worked directly with him, I would go, gee, Walt, thanks for all you taught them, and thanks for all they taught me. And I hope I did a good job, that we did a good job at, taking all that learning and applying it and creating something that's true and honest to who Mickey is and what he stands for. And, hopefully stands the testament of time, like everything else that you so brilliantly did.
We have thought about that question. I have talked about that question on the show before, and we've heard answers that include but are not limited to, well, of course you show him Epcot Center, or you show him Where Magic Kingdom, or show him Disneyland today, or show him Flight of Passage because of technology. But the way you describe and your reason why you would show him Toontown not only made the light go off and makes perfect sense, but I felt myself almost getting a little choked up as you told it, because as you know, it is all about emotion. And I think I said this to you last time, Joe. I think Walt would be very proud of you and what you have not only helped contribute to, but what you have helped lead in terms of your time at both animation and at Imagineering. I'm not kidding when I said I would love to have you back again, because I know you have so many stories to tell. But on behalf of myself and everyone who has enjoyed not just our conversation, but the joy that you have brought us on screen and in the parks. My heartfelt thanks.
Oh, you know what? It's been first. I've so enjoyed talking with you, Lou, and you're a great interviewer. Like I've said in the past, it was really just, I feel honored and privileged to have been able to do the things I was able to do, and honored and privileged to work with all the great, incredibly talented Imagineers that I got to work with, and all the people I met along the way. And a tip of hat to all of them. And if I didn't mention your name or somebody's name, I forgot along the way. No, your work, it was brilliant, and I thank you for being a part of it. And again, thank you, Lou. This was great, and I look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, and happy holidays, Lou.
Joe, thank you again. I appreciate you squeezing us in today. You are brilliant. And again, I really, really, just on a personal level, have really enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lou.
Thank you.
Again, be safe. Have a
You
great
too.
holiday.
差し伸べてくれるさありがとう人魚さん助かったよ風に吹かれ旅は続く舵を取れ希望を胸に
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history, or see how well you pay attention to the details in what you see, hear, maybe taste or remember. If you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney prize package. Before we get to this week's question, we're going to go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week I took you over to Liberty Square in Magic Kingdom, and I asked you to tell me who the three owners of the three different stores that collectively make up Ye Olde Christmas Shop are. Again, according to story, there are three separate shops which are connected that make up this store, and they are Keppel, the tailor, Ichabod, Crane, who owns the music shop, and Woodwright is the wood carver. And you can actually hear the entire backstory about this shop and its evolution from what it was to what it is now by listening to my audio tour of Liberty Square, which you can find at the WDW Radio shop at WDWRadio.com. Still just $10. And I want to thank everyone who answered, got this one correct, or was at least incredibly creative with their answer. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Lloyd Sinicola. So Lloyd, congratulations. I will get your prize package out to you right away. If you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So we'll continue on with the holiday theme and the holiday season, because I want you to tell me, where in Walt Disney World have you heard this phrase? Cheer up, Jane. Maybe we'll all be together by next Christmas. That's it. Just tell me where in Walt Disney World you can or could hear that quote. Go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the online form there. Again, you're going to play for a copy of my brand new Disney Interviews book, my 102 Ways to Save Money for an at Walt Disney World book, and all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours of Magic Kingdom, all of which, by the way, you can find at WDWRadio.com. Contest runs until Sunday, January 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in this and every week. If you enjoyed my conversation with Joe this and last week, please come over and let us know over in the Facebook group. Also, please help spread the word. Tell a friend and share a link to this week's episode. Also, if you like the interview, please check out my new book, The Disney Interviews Volume 1, a collection of one-on-one conversations with Imagineers, artists, actors, musicians, magic makers, and Mouseketeers who worked for and with Walt and the Walt Disney Company in the creation of the parks, movies, and television, or were instrumental in helping to preserve his legacy and history. People like Julie Andrews, Marty Sklar, Alice Davis, Dave Smith, Charles Ridgway, Richard Sherman, and more. You can find out more and get a direct link to purchase on Amazon, on Kindle, or paperback by going to DisneyInterviews.com. I want to thank some of the new and longtime members of the WDW Radio Nation family, including Jordan Lively, Marnie Raimondo, Fred Abley from Get Me Coding, Justin, Lori Brandon, the entire McNamara family, Tim, just Tim, like Cher, and Nick Slate. If you want to not only help the show, but get exclusive rewards every month, including scavenger hunts, trivia quests, we have a private Facebook group, Magic Band covers, logo gear, monthly care packages from Walt Disney World, exclusive live video group calls, and more, including a bunch of new rewards coming at the beginning of the year. Please visit www.radio.com/support. It's completely optional, starts at as little as $1 a month, but it's a great way for you to help show your support for WDW Radio. And please don't forget that a portion of the proceeds of your optional contribution goes to our Dream Team project to directly benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. Because of and thanks to you, we've raised more than $350,000 for Make-A-Wish. Again, to learn more and join, visit www.radio.com/support. If you have a question you'd like me to answer on the show, you can email me, lou@wdwradio.com, or call the voicemail, be heard on the air with a question, a comment, or a hello from the parks at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. You can also connect with me directly on social. I am at Lou Mongello on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. Also, be sure to like the WDW Radio page on Facebook so you don't miss a thing at facebook.com/WDW Radio. Thanks as always to MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, my official and recommended travel provider for almost 15 years for all of your vacation planning needs, whether you're going to a Disney destination or anywhere on this beautiful planet of ours. You can get a free, no obligation quote and the exceptional levels of personal service that come at no cost to you, which is their hallmark, by visiting them at mousefantravel.com. And because you have helped me and allowed me to turn what I love into what I do, I want to help you do the same. So if you're trying to make a living following your dreams, but maybe feel a little lost or isolated or alone as a solopreneur, or don't know how to make that shift from hobbyist to serious entrepreneur, want to build a community and turn your passion into your profession, I'd love to try and help you either through one-on-one mentoring, or I'm about to launch 2 new mastermind groups every Tuesday night beginning this January. For more information, you can visit loumongello.com and click on the coaching tab there, or just reach out to me directly, lou@wdwradio.com. If you have a question, find out how I might be able to help you there. And as always, my friend, and you are my friend, whether we have met yet or not, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word, let others know about it, tweet out that you're listening, share a link on Facebook or Pinterest or anywhere you like. And if you can, take just a couple of seconds to rate and review the show over on Apple Podcasts. It's incredibly helpful. Takes just a couple of seconds. I want to thank some recent reviewers like GZAV1212, who says it's a way to experience Disney with friends. I've become part of the WDW Radio family in the past few months. I love Lou's positivity and Disney knowledge. It's more than a podcast, it's a way of life. Start listening, join the clubhouse on Facebook. I feel like I'm sitting at the desk with my friends, listening to a Disney debate when I tune in. Hashtag choose the good. And Kane Lee, with lots of E's from Australia, says, I've just started listening to Lou and friends only recently, but I haven't been able to stop. I'm a huge Disney nut, and WDW Radio is helping fill the void until my next visit. And Anachronism22 from Canada says, the podcast brings joy, inspiration, and information to Disney fans, planners, and kids at heart. Thank you, Lou, for the enthusiasm and wonderful content. Accompany me on long runs, car rides, and any other time I get to tune in. You're simply the best. Well, Anachronism, Kane Lee with lots of E's, GZAV1212, thank you very much again. Just search for WDW Radio in Apple Podcasts, or go to www.radio.com/iTunes for a link and instructions. Finally, most importantly, we have reached the end, maybe thankfully, of 2022, and as we are about to turn the page to a new year, a new chapter, and new opportunities, I want to say thank you. I know how difficult this year has been for you, probably on many different levels. And while I may not certainly know the specifics, I understand that this year has been unlike any other. But I hope that the show and the community and the Facebook Lives on Wednesday night have been an outlet for you, have been a positive light and a source of even a small amount of joy and maybe a respite from some of the things that have been going on out in real life. I hope it has been helpful to you in some small way, much as the ability to do this and share this with you is an incredible gift to me. And despite everything that has happened this year, I am incredibly grateful to you and for the opportunity, for your time, for your friendship, for your incredible unwavering support. And if there's some way that I can help you and repay that gift and that favor, I mean it when I say to please reach out to me and let me know. I have incredible hope and faith and belief that this new year will bring new opportunity, new focus, and I hope for you that it really will be your best year ever. I promise you that I have been working on and will reveal soon some things that I have been planning and doing to try and make the show better, the community better, the Facebook Lives better on Wednesday night. Be sure and tune in after the first of the year to see exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have any suggestions, remember, this show, this community is for, by, and with you. So please let me know. You can post in the Facebook group, again, at wdwradio.com/clubhouse, or just email me directly, lou@wdwradio.com. I really want to do everything I can to help you, to serve you, to make your day better, and to be a little bit of a bright light in your day and week. I hope that you had, or are continuing to have, a wonderful holiday, that you choose the good now more than ever, that you be the good for other people, and that you have a happy, healthy, safe, yes, maybe even delicious new year, and awake on New Year's Day with a renewed sense of hope, purpose, and excitement. And as they used to say back in the Space Mountain song, here's to the future, and you, Happy New Year. I love you. I appreciate you. So until next time, and next year, see ya.
Hey, Lou. This is Michael Candace from Westport, Massachusetts. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So how do we do this? Who talks first? Do you talk first? Of course, I talk first. This is a voicemail. Just finished up listening to this week's show, which was wonderful as always. Always brings a smile to my face. So on the topic of favorite celebrity cameo, here's mine. Picture 1990, Epcot Center. My dad took me at the age of 13 and my sister at the age of 9. My parents were divorced, and he took us to Disney World to have some fun time with Dad. And we're there in the Wonders of Life Pavilion, and we see The Making of Me with Martin Short. And Dad looks at me and says, your mom wants me to talk to you about some things. You're getting to an age, so we're going to go watch this movie. So we go in, and as you can expect at 13, it's a little cringeworthy to be there with a parental figure watching that topic. And we finish it up, and we walk out, and Dad looks at me and says, do you have any questions? I said, nope. He says, okay, let's go ride Body Wars. So Dad passed 3 short years later, and but I'll always have that memory, and Martin Short is clearly my favorite celebrity cameo because of that. I'm a dad now myself, and coming up, I'm sure, much quicker than I would hope. I'll have to have that talk with my boy, and I just wish that Martin Short and The Making of Me was available to me to have that talk. On another note, I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Becky and to Tim Foster for always putting out that positivity. This has been a tough year for everybody. A lot of negativity out there, man, and it's very easy to feed into it and to get consumed by it. And you are a beacon of light every week and every day in our community. And it is very much appreciated. Choosing the good isn't always the easy thing, but it does feel good when you do it. And I just wanted to say thank you for somebody that most of us don't ever get the opportunity to interact with in person. The fact that we feel that we are your friend is amazing, just by hearing those, hearing your voice coming through speakers or seeing you on a computer screen. You are a special dude, and I appreciate you. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Here's to a healthy and fun 2021, and thank you again, Lou. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Hey, Lou, this is Chloe Mayhew from Ridgeway, Virginia. It is Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas from Epcot's World Showcase. don't know if you can hear the music in the background, but it's evening time. I'm walking around World Showcase, just enjoying this very cold day. But just want to say Merry Christmas to you and your family, and thank you for all you do to just bring joy and happiness to all of our lives and all of our days, especially this long stretch when a lot of us haven't been able to be at the parks. Last time I was at the parks was last Christmas, and had plans to go a couple of times this year, but, COVID. But just thank you so much for the joy and just the happiness that you bring to all of us every day. It is a really cold day here in World Showcase, but it is beautiful. Just really enjoyed snacking around the world and just really enjoying celebrating with all of the people from all around the country. And just Merry Christmas to everybody in the WDW Radio family, and thanks for all you do. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Hey, Lou. This is Alex Spires calling from, I used to be calling from South Georgia, but me and my husband, we have recently moved to Monroe, Louisiana, and we are driving back home from a wonderful week, spending time with family for Christmas. And I wanted to call the voicemail and just say I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas season and Happy New Year. Hope everybody has a Happy New Year. I know some people weren't able to be with family this year, and my hearts are just with everybody. Hope everybody stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you in 2021. Take care. Bye-bye.
One song I've never performed in public before, ever. It's a song just for you, Japanese D23 fans. From the Sinbad ride. Lift your sails to the heavens and fly on the breeze. Head across the horizon to seek brand new seas. Life's awaiting you out there, and if you sail true, you will find the priceless treasure waiting too. Tides may turn you and toss you, and storms may arise. Heart may stand in the path where your destiny lies. Just reach out for a friend when you're lost and astray, and the compass of your heart will lead the way. Life is the greatest adventure. There is no map, there's no charge. But if you seek life's great treasures, follow the compass of your heart. Life is the greatest adventure. There is no map, there's no chart. But if you seek life's great treasures, follow the compass